it's me, Ingrid INFP, and welcome to my spooky Halloween crochet corner. I made this little pumpkin thing, but it doesn't have any stem yet. I don't know what to do with this green stuff, because the green doesn't actually really go with a pumpkin. I should actually have brown and like crochet a little stub or something. But this is embroidery yarn and not like thick yarn, so I don't really know how I'm going to do it. I'm crocheting this like a little scarf or something with this black and gray yarn skein. And I'm talking about trauma, basically, because I was sexually harassed on Halloween 9 years ago. And I think that it's important to talk about. I've tried filming this so many times, yet without any, like, either I did it for an hour or I cried halfway through it, and that's why I decided to not like show my face while I'm doing this and just show my hands, because it's difficult for me to talk about this. Not even my therapist really, I can talk about it because they don't always understand, because I had a freeze response, and a lot of male therapists especially, but even female therapists, don't understand. Like, they're not they should be trained in this kind of stuff, but apparently they're not. Like, they should be trained in, learning about different kinds of trauma responses, panic responses, and one of those responses is freeze. There isn't just fight or flight, there is also freeze. And that is how I responded when I was in that situation. So I had this friend from medical school who wasn't really a friend. I don't know. My best friends were my ISFJ friend, whom I'm still friends with today, and my ISTP friend, a German friend. So since my ISFJ is Italian and my other friend is German, and I'm from France, we called ourselves like the little Europe, like we were the Council of Europe, because we were like the three, what used to be the powers of the EU, Then we ended up becoming friends also with a Polish girl and a girl from Pakistan. And then there were all the Finnish girls, but they had like sort of their own community because there were so many, the Finnish girls. It's apparently really hard to get into medical school in Finland, and a lot of them learn Swedish in school, so they move to Sweden once they've graduated high school. But then we got this guy who my ISFJ friend became friends with, and that's usually how I made friends in those days, was through my ISFJ friend, who was a lot more extroverted than what I was, because, well, he understood social cues, and I did not, because I'm not an FE user, so I was like, I had a hard time socializing, and so I became friends with this guy, and this guy was not very nice towards me in the end, but I did not know that at first. He was really into Japanese culture. I think that that kind of appeals to INTJs, which I think that he was, because of the minimalism and everything. I once went to his house, and he lived really close to the school, which was difficult afterwards, after what had happened, the fact that he lived so close to the school, because like I couldn't escape this guy. But anyway, I had a Halloween party at my house which was that I was renting a room in that place, but my landlady was rarely there. She often went on holiday. I think that she got rich by being a personal trainer, and I don't know how much she charged her clients, but anyway, I had the house for myself for Halloween, so I invited my friends, and we had a Halloween party where we made pumpkin soup, which my German friend is really good at making, and we make that every year. We're going to make it this year too. And it has been a tradition now that my German friend and my Italian friend, we get together and once a year and we make pumpkin soup. And I don't really make the pumpkin soup. I'm basically just the person who decorates the pumpkin, and my other friends help me make the soup. And let's see. So it was a weekday, and my friends, we had to get to lectures the next day. And my ISFJ friend is the dutiful SJ person that he is. He said, "Oh, it's starting to get late. Maybe I should go to bed. I'm going home." And my ISTP friend said, "Yeah, actually, I have this football thingy tomorrow, so I'm also going to leave." And so I was left alone with the INTJ. The reason I'm calling him the INTJ is just because I don't want to reveal his name or anything. And nothing against INTJs. You guys are wonderful. I'm just saying that, yeah, he was an INTJ. And so we decided to watch The Holy Grail by Monty Python, which was one of my favorite movies before this, but okay. Now I can't watch it because it reminds me of this night. And we were sitting on the sofa, and he put his feet on the footrest, and then he wanted me to put my feet between his, and then I did, and then he wanted to start a pillow fight, and then I was like, okay, and then he started hugging me, and he kind of grabbed me, so like I couldn't leave because he was so big, and his hands were so big, and like I remember that he had hairy hands. I mean, you know, the sort of things that you remember when you're in a traumatic situation are often pretty disconnected from like the reality of the thing. Because I couldn't leave. I was in my own house and I couldn't leave. And I remember like the credits to the movie rolling, and it was like light blue in the room because I guess that the credits were light blue, and it was kind of like eerie because, you know, it's like the LED lights from the TV are kind of reflected upon everything, and it was dark in the room. And he started touching me, like holding my legs down kind of, and touching my lips with his thumb, and like patting my head like I was some kind of sweet kitten. We'd gotten into a kind of like friendship where we could write online about stuff. And so like we would send each other memes, which, like, you know, my ISFJ and ISTP friends, they weren't really into memes. I must say that INTJs are pretty good at memes because they're intuitive. I didn't have an intuitive friend. And so since he was intuitive, like I felt there was some kind of connection, I guess, there. But it wasn't like, I didn't see him as anything other than a friend. At that point, I didn't really know like what I knew that I liked girls. I did not know if I was bi or what it was, but I was not at all attracted to him. I just thought of him as my friend. We would send each other memes, often cat memes, and I started realizing that afterwards that it was kind of like he thought of me the pixie dream girl who likes cats, and he would send me cute cat videos, and he would call me Meow Demoiselle because I'm from France, and so meow is what cats do, and so I liked play on words, I like puns, I thought that it was funny, but then I realized, oh, he was actually flirting with me. I didn't realize that until later. And so he thought that I was leading him on, which, like, I definitely wasn't, but he didn't know. But, like, it's not my fault. That was his own assumption. And so I was there, and I kind of had the freeze response, which unfortunately a lot of like counselors, I guess at the time, I don't know, but I think that a lot of psychologists should know this by now, that there's not only fight or flight, there's also freeze, the freeze response. But I did not get much help out of a psychologist at that time. I did go to a psychologist afterwards. But what ends up happening is that, okay, so this scene happens. I don't feel good. I suddenly wake up. Like I was in a daze while he was touching me and like saying, "It doesn't it feel good?" And I was nodding yes, because I also have a fawn response. I realized that it's like, don't wake the beast. Like, just do it as he says, so you won't get hurt more. If you just nod and say that everything is okay, then he'll treat you nicely, that kind of thought. And when you're in that kind of position, like, your brain is back to like prehistoric ages brain, you're not like thinking, oh, well, I'm in my own house, I can kick him out, or I can say no, or that kind of thing. So it was only after several minutes of this happening that I like kind of woke up out of my daze and stood up. And then I said, "When are you leaving?" And he was kind of shocked by that, because I'd been so compliant before. And it was kind of like, I guess they thought that I was all for all this, even though I hadn't said any yes, to be honest. The only thing I said yes to was, "Does it feel good?" And the reason I said yes to that was because, yeah, what he was doing was hugging me, and so it was nice to be hugged. In some weird way, it was nice to be hugged when I was going through a terrible time. But it was because he was hugging me that I was having a horrible time. And it's a confusing situation, in your brain. How do you explain that to a person? Especially when you're just in panic mode. So that was that. And I told him, "When are you leaving?" Instead of like telling him I wanted to leave, I was like, "When are you leaving?" And then he put like his most miserable pity face ever, and it was taking ages to leave the door. And I offered him some cake. Like, it was my phone response. I was like, "Do you want some cake? We still have some cake." And he was like, "No, thanks. I'll leave," with like his saddest face on. And that was guilt tripping me into like trying to be nice to him, you know. Then afterwards, once he left, before he left, I said, I don't want to sit on the same lecture hall row as you. He was like, okay. Like he was so sad. And then once he left, I sobbed on the floor like in the movies. Like I fell to the floor. I was just sobbing on the floor, holding my knees, like rocking. I was not okay. And so I called my ISFJ friend, who was my best friend at the time too. But he was like, he was tired and he wanted to go home, and he didn't understand like the importance of what had just happened, because I wasn't, well, technically I wasn't raped. Also, my friend is Catholic, so his definitions of certain things are not always the best, or not the ones that I use. So he was just like, but didn't you want to, like, are you interested by him? I was like, no, like, of course not. Like, why would I be calling you in the middle of the night like this, sobbing, if I wanted this to happen? And he was like, oh, okay. But he didn't really know how to help the situation because there wasn't really a practical solution to this. But I called my ISTP friend, and my ISTP friend literally, like, he saved my life. I'll be forever grateful for him doing what he did. He, like, when I called, I called him, it was like 2-3 a.m. at this point. And he was like, do you want me to come over? And I was like, no, like, I need some time on my own, you know. I should have said yes, but I couldn't deal with the fact of having another person there at that point. And then he said, oh, well, do you want to come over to my house if you don't feel safe in your own house? And I said, oh, no, it's okay. I think that I want to stay home and we'll see each other tomorrow. I said, please, can you make sure that he doesn't sit on our row at school, because I don't think I can handle it. And he was like, okay, I'll make sure of that. And sure enough, the next day, he sat at the edge of the row so that nobody could come in except for me. And he was the only person who cared enough, I feel. And I'm really grateful for him. And of course he's uncomfortable with like great shows of emotion because he's an ISTP, but he really cared about me, and I couldn't have asked for any better friend, to be honest. Like, he didn't ask any questions. Like, he asked some questions, but just enough so that to make sure that he understood the situation. But he did not like question me, like. And I tried to go to a therapist later on, but I couldn't really do the therapy in the right way. It was difficult for me because I didn't want to be controlled. I didn't want to try antidepressants. I did try them in the end, right after that happened, with the INTJ. So I went to therapy, and it wasn't that successful. I had a male therapist and who looked like this INTJ, which kind of messed things up. He was the one who thought I was suicidal because I wanted to be a cat, which, means that you don't really understand anything about me or anything about like how cool it would be to be a cat. But he misunderstood me quite a lot, and so I wanted to have a female therapist. But it was only later on that I found out that, well, after I had met that female therapist, and that it didn't go well, because she wanted to do art therapy by having a canvas where I was supposed to have my back to her and her judging me the whole time I was painting something, which I don't think that that's how you should do art therapy. Because, I get so nervous doing something in front of somebody else. I don't have good experience with most of therapy. The only psychologist I really have clicked with so far is the one that I have now. So I'm going to try to keep him. But at the time, I could not have a male therapist because of what had just happened. I was scared of men at that point because, well, even if my good friends were men, I realized, I can't trust them because, well, one of the people that I thought were my friend was actually flirting with me this whole time and did not respect my boundaries and just assumed that I was okay with everything that was going on because we had such communication issues. And I realized that female therapist was actually his therapist because there were only 2 therapists at the student health where I was doing my first therapy sessions. It took me a long time to even get to therapy because I was so reticent to getting help. Everything felt so impossible. So I did my best and I did get to a therapist, but it was through the student health. And then I found out, true, if there are only 2 therapists and one of them is male and one of them is female, and then I remembered that he had said to me that his therapist was female at the student health, I realized, that must be she must be the therapist that I saw now. And that really, because we had a chat, we had a big talk around a month after this had happened, in the month of November. It was around my birthday. And we sat in a room. We went with completely different expectations. My expectation was for me to tell him that it was not okay that he treated me the way that he did. And his expectation was that he wanted to be friends again. And I told him, I can't be friends with you after this happened. And he was like, okay. It's like a lot of men, I'm sorry for you men out there. Some men think that women are against them because they're not finding dates. And it's like, well, we are also having trouble finding dates, okay? You're not the only lonely people on the planet. And also, a lot of men feel like they are blessing women with their presence. And it's like, that's not how we do things, Just because you exist and you're like a kind of okay guy doesn't mean that we are obliged to be with you. That we are deficient for not wanting to talk to you. That we're cold or harsh or whatever because we don't want to talk to you. There are plenty of men in the world, and many of whom have hurt us. And even though you're not going to be the one who hurts us, we are going to be defensive, about certain things. We're going to be on the defensive because we have been hurt in the past. And that's just how human psychology works. It's not anything against you personally, but a lot of men think that like talking to a woman is going to be like, oh, that they're going to see how wonderful they are. And it's a little bit because of our patriarchy culture that like forces men to take the first step. But it's like I've been seen as like the impossible woman, the prudish woman, the woman who lets men down and who disappoints them and who is a man hater and blah blah blah. But it's like I never asked for these men to come into my life, you know? I've never had a problem with women like imposing themselves into my life, um, except when I was like 5 or 6 years old, when, you know, children, some children are bossy, you know? And it's like, you're not any more special than any other man. Just because you're intuitive or you're sensitive or, you know, you're more emotionally mature than other men, doesn't mean that like I am forced to accept you into my life as like my savior. You know, a lot of men think that they're Jesus in the Christian faith, you know. And yeah, so that's kind of like the person that he was, and that's kind of a lot how men on the internet treat me sometimes. They're like, oh, you're so cute. And it's like, oh, we should talk because we have such a deep, soulful connection. And it's like, I'm talking about somebody in particular right now, but he's not the first. There are many men who are like, oh, you know, I can fix you because you're a lesbian, but if you just knew about, well, my private package, you would change your mind, you know, or that, oh, you've been hurt in the past, but I'm different than all these boys, you know, these fuck boys. I'm a nice guy, you know. And it's like, no, you're not being nice. You're not being nice because you're not respecting that I have a will of my own. And so it has taken me a long time to be able to talk about this because it's something that is unfortunately still pretty misunderstood. And that the fact that I had a freeze response and fawn response rather than the fight or flight, which is more, you know, conventionally the good response or whatever to being taken advantage of. Sometimes we don't have control over like what our body decides to do to protect us. And so I did the freeze response. Also, the fact that I did try to go to therapy, but it didn't work. And so I got pretty disillusioned about therapy and about medication, because that's when I tried Cipralex, and then I ended up in hospital because I had a heart palpitations in the middle of the night, and so I had to go to school the next day. I mean, there was quite a lot at that time point, which makes it difficult for me to seek therapy and to trust therapists, because apparently this therapist had said that I was the crazy one to this INTJ guy. Even though she didn't know me at that point, she hadn't met me. She didn't know it was me that she was talking about. It was only me that later on figured out that, oh yeah, that must have been the same therapist that he had. And so I left therapy because I realized like this isn't going to help me anymore. And I had so much else to think about. I started a job at an old age home, which was a terrible job for me, being an intuitive, like, having to deal with like knowing where people put their toothbrushes and stuff like is it's hell. It's like, you know, I had to rely on my SITE and like non-existent FE to do that job, and it wasn't fun. So that's what took the end of that thing. Then later on, I got sexually harassed also by just a total stranger on the street, who, well, we sat down, he bought me a beer or a cider or something, and I was basically like just telling him about Outlander and stuff, like to like do conversation so that everything would seem like everything was okay and public. But then he started kissing me, and he put his hand between my legs, and then he kissed me on the bridge in the middle of Stockholm, and I told him his lips were disgusting, and he was like, why? And then he was like, oh, well, you should give me your number so that we can meet again. And I gave him a fake number, and thank God he didn't try calling at that split second. But all that happened within the same year. And you could say that I was naive. And yeah, I was naive. But it shouldn't have to be that I have to be smart. I shouldn't have to be smart in order to not be taken advantage of, you know? And so that kind of annoys me about how men will frame it, you know? He also grabbed me pretty hard when I was kind of pulling away from his kiss on the bridge. A lot of people see me as like the a manic pixie dream girl, or like a tragic princess, you know. I'm pretty melancholic and such, and so this guy, he saw me looking down into the water, and he was like, oh, don't jump in, you know. And I was like, what do you think? Like, I want to jump in right now because you're like too close to me. But it's not because I want to die. It's because I want to get out of here, you know. He was pretty forceful. And the thing is, it was in public, in the middle, in front of everybody, and so I didn't want to cause a scene. That's that. And then so I had the same response, freeze and fawn, and at least I was smart enough that I gave him a fake number, but, you know. And also I did not pay for my drink, so that was a small win, I guess. Yeah, so for me it's pretty traumatic when people, like men, come to me in real life or online and tell me that, oh, we have such a special connection, you know. Cisgender men who are straight are not oppressed. They're not oppressed, okay? They're not a minority. They're the majority. And just because you have a hard time dating and you feel lonely doesn't mean that you're oppressed. Like, try being a lesbian, asexual female who might be on the autistic spectrum, you know. It's hard, you know, because you're expected to like make smart choices, and at the same time you're expected to be weak and dumb, you know. You can't expect us to be both dumb and smart at the same time, you know. You can't say, oh, like, yeah, I mean, you can't think that I'm a manic pixie dream girl and at the same time, like, ask me to be a smart person. That's not how characters in fiction work. And that's what you take me as. You take me as a fictional character rather than as a human. So yeah, that's why I'm telling you this story for Halloween, because I find it pretty spooky, and I find kind of like a lot of men take us to be fictional characters. So I'll stop this video now because it's been 35 minutes. That was all about my trauma. I hope that you guys have a cozy weekend. I have a cold right now, and it takes me ages to reply to your comments, and I'm sorry about that. I find it more fun making videos than responding to comments, even though I love your comments. And I have been pretty triggered by one of the commenters lately. And also, I want to reply something that is well thought out when I reply to the comments, and it won't always be that way. And so while I wait until I decide if I have the energy to make a insightful comment back or not, I usually leave it blank, and then I might and like send a love thingy on the comment, but only after that I'm certain that I'm not going to like reply, because it's kind of my system of how I know who I've replied to. So that's how I'm. That's why I'm taking so much time replying to comments. I love all your comments. You guys are all great. I think that we should have a little bit of compassion for each other. I don't hate men. There was a period where I did right after this thing happened, but I love men. Okay, you guys are great. I'm just saying that some of you guys are not even aware that you're doing things that harm the woman in your life. And then you twist it around and say like, oh, but I didn't do anything wrong. I'm a nice guy, you know, I treat you really well. That's not how things work, you know. So that's all I had to say. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.